being a humble man. That is so big to the immature Christian. The guy who shows up, who's checking out this thing called church, seeing that humble leader is huge, man, huge.
Pride and arrogance, it's every man's struggle because it's what we want to resort to naturally. It's just in us. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've had my own struggle with pride, playing music, being on stage, whatever, man. I'm sure you have too, Luke. And but you have to work to be humble. Pride comes naturally, but you have to work to be humble, and it's hard sometimes. But like you said, the more you work at it, the better it is, and it's just you just gotta be humble and you will turn people up, like turning Mike. Those guys turning Mike away because they were, or turning not really turning him away, but turning him off because of their arrogance, and their pride was overshadowing what they were trying to do. And I think that happens more often than not.
I have said this, and it may come off cliche, and it's not cliche. I have said many times publicly, on stage even, pride is the number one thing that I struggle with. It is number one. I mean, top tier, number one. And the reason that I say that is because a lot of times when pride's in somebody's life, it's the root, and then you have fruit that sprouts up here and here and here and here. And so, somebody might start whack-a-moling fruit, and it'll pop up in the weirdest way. It'll be the weirdest thing. And so you start whack-a-moling fruit, and then so you'll deal with this fruit, and maybe you don't have this fruit, but now you have a different one over here. And it's because you don't deal with the root. And so you expend a lot of effort trying to whack other fruits. And I've learned that the root of a lot of people's issue is pride, at the very, very heart of it. And the reason is because pride is the original sin. It predates Adam and Eve. Pride is the reason that Lucifer fell. And so if Satan can get you prideful, you are the most like Satan when you're prideful. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
That's tough.
You can be a nasty person, but when you've got a prideful person, even if they're very religious, but they're very prideful, and then you've got this rotten sinner over here, and you were to say, which one's most like Satan? It would be the prideful person. That would be the most like Satan. And so, it really is a perspective change, and I won't say that I've got it perfectly. There's a lot of times where after something happens, I'm like, dadgum, I blew that. Here I am asking for forgiveness because I'm like, man, I screwed that up a lot. Biggest things in the relationship with my wife. I have a lot of opportunities to work on my pride in that relationship. I get a lot of opportunities. And one of the most difficult things, if you want to exercise working on humility and decreasing pride, if you want an exercise, the number one exercise is called confession. And the scripture actually says, confess your faults to one another so that you can be healed. So there's a lot of people that's looking for healing, a physical issue or an emotional issue. They're looking for healing in their life. But the issue is they've got an underlying pride. And that's what confession is getting after. Because if you've got pride, you will not confess your faults. It's like it's like fire coming out of your mouth. It is horrible. And it is hard to remain a prideful person when you're consistently confessing your faults. And I'm not saying broadcasting them to the world, but to someone, a spouse is a really good person to confess your faults to. Even if they won't confess them to you. It's a really good exercise in gauging where's my pride right now, and let's decrease that. Because the scripture says, he who wants to be exalted must be brought low. In other words, you've got to humble yourself if you want to be exalted. That's what Jesus did. He humbled himself over and over and over again. And the scripture says, even to the point of dying on a cross, which was the worst death, the most dishonorable death. And then he was exalted. He was exalted to the highest places, sitting at the right hand of the Father. And so for us personally, if we want to see, like, okay, am I prideful, right? Like, do I have pride in my life that I'm trying to deal with? See what your appetite is to confess your faults to somebody near you. If the thought of that turns your stomach over, we got an issue to deal with. We have a serious issue to deal with. And it takes a lot of internal humbling to even get to the point where you would even consider to confess your faults. It's a very difficult exercise.
You beat me to the punch.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna ask you that question now for the average guy out there listening. How do you take action to beat that pride? And you beat me to that. And it's like, I kind of had an eye-opening moment when you read that scripture about confessing your faults to one another. That's for you. That's for the person struggling with pride. That's not for the person you're confessing your faults to. Mm-hmm. And you want to confess your faults to someone that's not going to judge you or not bang you over the head and beat you down. But
exactly.
You want to, but that's for you. That's for your healing. Mm-hmm. You get that stuff out in the light, and it have no more control over you.